invited me to the Plenum, and I would like also to congratulate them for the outstanding organization and of this very important event. What I would like to do also is just to introduce myself very briefly, and I will let my colleagues to introduce themselves. I am Dominique Grenesch, and I am a nuclear physicist, in fact, and engineers, and I had various positions in France at the Atomic Energy Commission, and then at the Institute for Nuclear Safety, and finally at Areva. I am now a professor of nuclear engineering and a consultant in a company which is called Nuclear Consulting. And by the way, this company has much less employee than Areva, since there is only one, and that's me. Well, whatever. It's my pleasure and privilege to be the moderator of this panel today. And as such, let me introduce the two other panelists. By the way, I will play the role of the moderator and also of panelists, because we are only 3 people here on the floor. So I will give some thought about the topics today also. So my two other panelists are Mr. Hans-Joachim Schmidt from, Schmidt is okay? Schmidt, yes. From Germany, and working for the Peace Research Institute in Frankfurt. And the second panelist, my French colleague, Mr. Barthélemy Courmont from France, and is working for Institute for International Strategy and Strategic Relations, and he will present himself also in more details in a minute. So where what I propose now is to let them give their ideas and thinkings on the consequences for Europe and European countries for of the Fukushima nuclear accident. And after their talk, I will give you myself my own thoughts and guidelines for the debates and for the discussion. So I would like first to give the floor to Mr. Courmont from France to give his thoughts on the issue of the European response to Fukushima. Please, Mr. Courmont, you have the floor.
Thank you, Dominique. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm very glad that the other panels were probably full, so some of you managed to come to attend to this one. Well, I'd like to thank the Asan Institute for this remarkable organization and this extremely interesting conference. It's particularly good in my personal case because besides my activities in Paris mentioned by Dominique, I will be taking a position in Korea in a couple of months. So it's a great opportunity for me to come to Seoul and to kind of have some experience with Korean life already. So I'm very thankful for that. And well, I believe, looking at the crowd today, that either the other panels are particularly interesting, and I'm quite frustrated, I have to say, because some of them really interested me too, so I would like to listen to their concern as well. It's always a trick when you have such a huge conference. You want to listen to everybody, and unfortunately you have to make choices. Yes. And the other reason is maybe because European policies are somehow not attractive enough, maybe too technical, maybe too difficult to apprehend for non-Europeans. So I'm very glad, however, to see some of you attending here and just listen to the differences between France and Germany after the Fukushima incident. I'm very glad that we are together presenting probably very different views. Yes. And I will speak mostly about the political implications of the Fukushima incident. I'm a political scientist, by the way. I'm not a scientist like Dominique, so I will focus on political aspects and also the weight of the public opinion and how it could influence political decisions in the near future. I think this is particularly important, especially in democracies such as European Union countries. And the title of my presentation originally, by the way, I prepared prepared a PowerPoint presentation because I had a lot of numbers and a lot of quotations from different political leaders in Europe. So if some of you are interested in receiving a copy of my text, please come to meet me afterwards, and I will give me my card, and you can send me an email, and I will send you a PDF of my text with more numbers and charts. So that will help me not to have to present all of these today. So anyway, the title was Nuclear Renaissance Revisited, but with a question mark at the end. And I think the question mark is particularly important. Is Europe going to change its nuclear policy after the Fukushima accident? Are European countries going to follow the German example and decide to turn off nuclear capabilities within the next few decades? Or on the other side, are we going to have a divide among European members? And is such a divide going to create some tensions or maybe interactions among the members? So these are the kind of topics I would like to discuss today, and that's why I put a question mark on this title. Well, undoubtedly, this accident in Japan had a major effect on public opinions in Europe, probably as big, if not bigger, than what happened 25 years ago after the Chernobyl incident. And it was reported by various medias in all Europe, and I'd like to give you just a few examples of how the media reported this accident in European countries. In Le Figaro, a French daily newspaper, Le Figaro mentioned that the debate that seemed to be fading away with the memory of Chernobyl has come back with brutal insistence. And indeed, in all the polls that have been organized within the weeks after the incident, we have seen a growing fear among European population regarding the possibility of such accidents in European countries and in nuclear plants. And the German newspaper Der Spiegel, I hope I spell it properly, talked about the end of a nuclear era. So even before the decision taken by Angela Merkel, the German media reported the possibility, or maybe the need, stressed the need to think about the end of a nuclear era in a country like Germany. And there are some other very interesting examples, especially in Germany. The magazine, I think it's a magazine, Der Standard, mentioned that doubts have been voiced about the safety of Eastern European plants such as Moskovskie in Slovakia and Temelin in Czech Republic. When it comes to power in Germany, though, the criticism is more muted. So somehow, it really showed how the public opinion was willing to expect a debate, to expect like a better transparency on how the European nuclear plants work. And their standard adds that this vulnerability reminds us that nuclear issues haven't yet come up with clear answers. And the questions raised are, is the technology controllable? Can the plants be made safer? And this newspaper uses the European Union to take decisions, notably regarding the implementation of stress tests. And I will come back to this issue slightly later. And it also reminds the support of the Austrian Minister of Environment, Nikolaus Berlakovic, who has been asking himself as soon as after the Fukushima incident for stress tests in all European nuclear plants. The Czech newspaper Hospodářské noviny, I don't know if there are some Czechs here, and I'm sorry about the pronunciation of it, pointed out something quite interesting, saying that unlike in 1986, during the Chernobyl disaster, there is no longer any communist regime that has a matter of principle cares not a whit for the safety of its people. So basically the idea is that we cannot blame the leaders anymore. We cannot blame the political regimes. We have to blame the technical aspects and the transparency behind our nuclear plants. And I think this is a very important point. For the first time, we have a proof that this kind of catastrophe can both happen in a democracy and can also happen in a country where technology is not considered a major problem. So, of course, this raised considerable issues among European states, and particularly the ones who have a lot of nuclear capabilities. So just as a quick reminder of what is the state of nuclear energy in Europe at the moment, I just remind you that we have altogether 143 nuclear plants, which is absolutely gigantic. France is by far the most nuclearized country in Europe with 58 reactors and 2 currently planned. Then we have UK with 19 currently in use and 8 plants to come on stream. Germany has 17 reactors. We'll come back to the issue of Germany in more details. And the other countries are Sweden with 10 reactors, but which altogether represent over 50% of electricity needs of this country. Spain has 8 reactors, Belgium 7, which is also a lot considering the size and the population of this country. The Czech Republic has 6 reactors. Finland, Hungary, and Slovakia, each of them 4. Bulgaria and Romania, 2 each. The Netherlands and Slovenia, 1. So just to give you an idea, out of 27 state members, 14 currently possess nuclear reactors, which means, by the way, that after Germany definitely gives up its potential, the majority of the European countries will not possess nuclear reactors. And I think it would be interesting to see how it could impact the public opinion and the positions of various states. So I won't mention here much the German U-turn, as I call it, and I believe that after Hans-Joachim's presentation, we will come back to this issue, and maybe we can also debate a little bit on this issue, but I would like to let him present this aspect. But I would just like to remind you that prior to this decision taken by Germany, we often hear and read here and there that this is a precedent for a nuclear country. But in fact, it is not. In 1987, Italy organized a referendum after the Chernobyl incident to see whether or not the Italian government was willing to keep on having nuclear capabilities, and the answer was no. So Italy gave up at that time its nuclear capabilities. And it's only a few months ago that the Berlusconi cabinet received a confidence vote that allowed him to pursue a new nuclear project. So Italy is somehow a quite significant symbol of what we call the nuclear renaissance in the past few years, and mostly in response to the increase of the oil prices. And Germany also gave up its capabilities 10 years ago. There was this agreement between the then SPD Green coalition and the biggest nuclear producers in Germany. It was made in 2002. And the decision at that time was that Germany would definitely give up its capabilities by 2021. So it's only last year that Angela Merkel did this U-turn by deciding to reactivate the German capabilities. So you see, it's nothing really new with the German decision. It's just somehow coming back to what has been decided, mostly under the pressure of the German public opinion. But again, we will come back to the German point in detail slightly later. And I'd like to maybe expose a little bit the situation in France, which has been particularly interesting. And I was actually in France for the past 2 months, so I followed on a daily basis the evolution on the debate, mostly in the media, of course, but also what have been the posture of the various political leaders. And, well, of course, you all know that France is, in the world, the most dependent country on nuclear energy. It represents about 80% of its electricity need. So, of course, in a country such as France, it's, if not impossible, quite difficult to discuss the possibility to give up nuclear energy in the near future. However, there was a very interesting poll organized just a few days ago. It was actually on June 4th. And the question was whether people were willing to give up nuclear energy and think about renewable energies. And in that poll, only 22% of the respondents supported building new nuclear power stations. 15% backed a switch decommissioning, so following the German example, and 62%, and I think this is the most interesting part, 62% supported a gradual decommissioning. And I think this is a clear indication of what are the public opinion's intentions at this stage in France. We are ready to keep on having our nuclear capabilities as long as we have some agenda, as long as we have some plan for the future, and as long as we can think about other sources of energy, including renewable. So it certainly will have some impact both on political decisions in the next few years, but also on the presidential election that will be held next year, in exactly a year. And we already see a few cases of consequences of this pressure from the public opinion among the different candidates. Of course, traditionally, just like in Germany, the Green Party of France supports an exit strategy of nuclear. The difference with Germany is that the Green Party is much more limited in France. However, in the past few years, it's been growing quite significantly. And there was an election, a local election last year, provincial election. And altogether, the Greens represented 16% of the vote, which is an extremely high result for the Greens. And both candidates for the primaries of this party, Nicolas Hulot and Eva Joly, called for a referendum to be held in France. So they obviously have particularly strong posture regarding this issue. And they also urge the Socialist Party to consider the Green position prior to a possible alliance on the eve of the 2012 election. And I think this is the most important aspect. So the question is not whether the Greens are likely to have a big result or not, but how are they going to sell their position to the Socialist Party in the possibility of an alliance. So, of course, he had a huge impact on the Socialist primary contestants. So Martine Aubry, the current Secretary General of the party, who is likely to be one of the candidates for these primaries, actually praised Angela Merkel's decision in a public speech, and she believes that France should strongly consider a nuclear end strategy within 20 to 30 years. But, of course, she refused to define any agenda at this stage, and we believe that if she's elected, the situation might be different, and I can see some people laughing, and I totally understand why. Okay, so I'll go slightly faster.
Speed up a little bit.
Okay. So the other candidates among the Socialist Party all expressed their concerns regarding the future of nuclear energy at different levels. For instance, François Hollande, who is currently leading the polls, believes that we can consider a reduction from 75 to 50% of the nuclear part within the electricity, but we cannot consider a bigger step in the near future. And on the other side, the UMP, which is the presidential majority, the Nicolas Sarkozy party, has a very interesting pragmatic approach. I quote Nicolas Sarkozy, who reacted to the German decision. He said, if the Germans stop their reactors, then they will have to be replaced. We'll be candidates to sell electricity. So it's quite interesting to see how this German decision can raise some opportunities in France, at least in the near future. And we will again discuss that, like how long it will take for the Germans to implement renewable energies and what are they going to do in this transition time, probably in the next 20 to 30 years. And France is already candidate both to sell energy but also maybe to participate to the implementation of new nuclear plants in other countries around Germany. So somehow, Merkel's recent decision is, I would say, more welcomed by the French government than the one she made about a year ago when she announced that she was going to reverse this decision taken by the precedent government. Just very quickly, the UK, countries such as the UK, but also the Czech Republic, totally followed on France's steps and defended vigorously their nuclear program. I just quote the British Energy Minister, Chris Yoon, who said that we need to learn every possible lesson from the Japanese crisis, of course. But there is a big difference, is that we are frankly amazingly lucky that we don't live in a seismically active earthquake zone like Japan. So basically, it is a quite interesting attempt, and we've seen similar attempts in France too, to explain that we are not exposed to the same kind of problems Japan faced in the past few weeks, at least 3 months ago. So it's quite interesting to see this distinction proposed or made by the nuclear states in Europe. So I believe that we'll come back to that. As a conclusion, I would like also to discuss the frictions at the EU level, notably with the EU Energy Commissioner, who, by the way, is a German citizen, Günther Oettinger, who talked about an apocalypse, just to describe the Fukushima accident. And of course, it was very vividly criticized by the French government, and notably the French energy minister, Mr. Eric Besson, who called him, who criticized him for having his neurotic opposition to atomic power. So it really shows the kind of situation in which we are at the moment. And that raised several questions that I will just propose to you as a conclusion of my presentation. First of all, what will be the EU position, or a EU position, if more countries follow the German example? Second, what are the chances for success? And that's a question I actually asked to my friend Hans Joachim. What are the chances for success in Germany's search for renewable energies? And what if it doesn't work? My third question will be more French-centered. What will be France's position if the Green Party has a high score in 2012 and pressures a potential socialist government? And what if a referendum is organized and confirms the public opinion fears, just like what happened in Italy in 1987? And my last question is and it's a more general one, a more political one maybe, is the divergence on nuclear energy symptomatic of the problems the EU members face, or is that an isolated case? And that's really a question I would like to debate with you. Thank you. And sorry for being too long.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lemy. We have no time for my own question. I prefer to leave the question to the room here. So I give the floor directly to you, Mr. Schmidt, for your talk and your thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also thank the organizers that invited me to this conference and give me the opportunity to discuss the German alternative towards civil nuclear program. And I must also correct the plan here, in spite of the fact that I tried it by email to correct them. I'm not a member of the Pacific Regional Institute Frankfurt. I'm a member of the Peace Research Institute.
Yeah. I saw that. It was a big mistake.
It was a mistake.
Yeah, it is. I was surprised myself by this.
What happened? But
anyway.
Maybe that the Koreans don't know where Frankfurt lies. In spite of the fact that in Frankfurt we have the greatest Korean community in Europe. So I don't understand it, but well, coming to German response to Fukushima. Well, if you want to understand the German position on that question, I think you must know that when you go back to history, Germany started in the 50s with many other European countries its civil nuclear research program and want to establish civil nuclear energy in the future. And in the 70s, we had the first big discussions in our society about the future of civil nuclear energy and the first protest by NGOs. And the initial move against civil nuclear program was also, from my point of view, the foundation for the Green Party. And it was after the student revolts in Paris and later on in our country in the beginning 70s, which also contributed to that. So, and in the 80s, we had big discussions about the double-track decision. And this also strengthened the Green Party and the protesters against nuclear energy. And in the 80s and 90s, we had the discussion about the final civil nuclear waste disposal. And there were a lot of controversy about that and a lot of protest about it. And later on, or just now, we detected that the government has lied about the reasons why they selected, for example, Gorleben as one of the nuclear waste disposals. And so all these developments strengthened the Green Party in our society. And Chernobyl, the accident of Chernobyl, also strengthened the Green Party. I should remember this. And so it explains to a high degree why now the majority of the German population has an anti-nuclear sentiment. And as Bartholomew said, the Germans support that we move away from civil nuclear energy. And the Green Social Democratic Coalition decided in 2002 that we will give up the civil nuclear program in 2021. So what we can say is, after 50 years of protest against the civil nuclear use of nuclear energy, we will go out. So we need 50 years for changing our mind about civil nuclear energy, and it gives you some idea how long a society needs to come to that decision. But from my point of view, this is now a final decision. Well, he mentioned the revival of the nuclear energy last year and the decision of the new liberal conservative government to reintroduce, to prolong the use of civil nuclear energy, and they prolonged it in the average of 12 years. And this strengthened the Green Party, this decision. And after Fukushima, well, the protest against it was overwhelming. And in this year, we had a lot of regional elections. And these elections showed very clearly to the conservatives and the liberals there is no support for a prolongation of the civil nuclear program. On the contrary, the protest is high. And this cumulated in the for example, in Bremen, the conservatives become the third strongest party in the elections. They were behind the Social Democrats and behind the Greens. The conservatives are the strongest party now in Germany now. And in Baden-Württemberg, they governed the country for more than 50 years, the conservatives. And the last time with the liberal coalition. the Greens became the strongest party after the elections. Not as the strongest, not compared to the Conservatives, but the Conservatives had 39%, but the Greens had 26%, and the Social Democrats 25%. And before the elections, they had announced that they will go together, so they had the majority of the votes. It was quite clear the Conservatives had no chance to come back to power because the Liberals were very weak. So the problem now for the Conservatives was they know very well they will not win the next elections if they will not change the attitude towards civil nuclear power. They know the Liberals are too weak. They will only get in the next elections something between 3 to 6%, and they can only become into the government or into the federal parliament when they are beyond the 5% threshold. So it's to count on the Liberals will not work when you will get something between 30, 35 or 36%. If you go beyond 40, it's not very likely in the next elections. So they know they must change something. And after the elections in Baden-Württemberg, the Conservatives changed their attitude and say they don't say it was a wrong decision to prolong the use of civil nuclear energy, but they say now we will stop. And they decided on a moratorium, and the eldest 7 nuclear reactors were suddenly stopped. And now we have stopped 8. Krümmel is another one in the north of Germany. It has a lot of technical problems, and no one believed in the security of that reactor, so it was also stopped. Now we have stopped 8. Of the 17 you mentioned. And the Conservatives now decided that they will go back to the decision of, in principle, will go back to the decision of the Green Social Democratic coalition and stop the civil nuclear program in 2022. It is 1 year longer. And by doing that, they want first weaken the Greens because they adopt the same goal like the Greens. And secondly, they want to show to the Greens that they will be an honest partner for them in the future, a credible partner, because they also support to go out of the civil nuclear use. And behind that, they have also some third thoughts. They included in the new law also the question, or they want to go along, they want to find a solution for the final waste disposal, nuclear waste disposal. And they want to bring in the Greens in that, in the hope that they can further divide them and weaken them. Maybe you know the last elections from Finland, where the Greens lost much because they supported the final waste disposal of the government because they were in a coalition. And the Conservatives here are very well aware of that decision and hope they can weaken by that decision the Greens. And it will be very interestingly to see how the Greens will decide in the beginning of July, I think it's 8 July, where our government will decide on the law on that issue. And the NGOs in Germany, they want to phase out very earlier than the Conservative government. And they want that we should phase out in between 2040 or 17. And from the technical point of view, it's possible to do that because the industry and the energy companies are prepared to phase out. And the decision by our new coalition to prolong the use of civil nuclear energy has not changed the environment very much, because it worked only for half a year. And then the conservatives returned to the old way of the Greens and the Social Democrats.
If you can just...
Yeah.
My goodness.
So, coming to my final points, I must say that the German decision is a good alternative for nuclear security in Europe, from my point of view. The best security we can get in Europe is to get rid of the use of nuclear energy, because then we have no security problem, in spite of the fact that the issue of nuclear waste disposal is an issue, a long-term issue, no question about it. But it's the best what we can do. And Germany has a good chance, from my point of view, by heavily investing in renewable energy, and we started that years before, that this will work in the future. In the next 5 to 7 years, we will see a lot of new technologies. The solar panels will become more efficient. And we will also invest in our electricity network. Of course, it will be not easy. And all the intelligence of the network. So, from my point of view, Germany has a good chance for a successful change. And if this successful change works over this decade, it will be a good example for other European countries and beyond, that you can go without civil nuclear energy. Because we are the strongest economy in Europe, and we can do that. Why other economies in the world can't do it? This is an interesting question. And from my point of view, the German alternative will not enhance civil nuclear security. It will also enhance military nuclear security if we work as a good example in the future and thereby convince other countries in Europe and in the world you can do it without heavily investment in civil nuclear energy. Then there is no reason to have civil nuclear energy to solve the energy problem. And then there is less reason for a military nuclear program. So from my point of view, the German decision will, over the longer time, heavily support the NPT, the non-proliferation goal, and also the non-proliferation treaty. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you very much. It's an interesting point of view. It's not mine, but this point of view is very welcome, of course. We are here for debate. So I'm afraid that I will not have time myself to say something, because the first thing is that many things have been already said. I would like just to summarize in very few minutes, in order to leave enough time for discussion and questions, to summarize my point of view on this issue. Clearly, I think that on the issue of the response, European response to Fukushima, we must differentiate three kinds of problem, three aspects. The first one is the impact on the public opinion. Generally speaking, it had great impact, as said Barthélemy a few minutes ago. And I would recommend you, if you are interested by this problem worldwide, to refer to a recent poll which has been made by Gallup Snap on 30,000 people in the world and 40 countries, in order what the people think about nuclear before Fukushima and after Fukushima. And this poll clearly show that, of course, the majority, which was roughly speaking 60-65 average in the world for nuclear, supporting nuclear, as strongly being reduced to to 50% or less than 50%. There is, if you want to have more information on this pool, you can ask me after the debate. You can find it on internet. Very interesting. The second aspect is, of course, more general, is energy supply strategies and political consequences. This has been also explained in detail in France and in Germany. We heard about this. The point here is simply that nuclear power has become a key political issue in several countries, particularly, of course, in Germany, but also in France and in some other countries, but not everywhere. Not everywhere. For example, in UK, I don't think it's the case, by the way. And the third aspect is, of course, safety is a technical one. It is safety issues. And it has been told already that European countries have just started what they call stress tests on 143 nuclear power plants we have in the European countries. So I don't enter into the details of the contents of the stress test, but of course they deal with seismic behavior, floods, and so on. Yeah. So this was my second point. Now I would like to conclude this very brief. I had prepared much more than this, but I have no time. I would like to say that the future of nuclear power in Europe at large, I mean, Europe at large means including Switzerland and other countries from Eastern, including Russia. For many countries in Europe, many countries in Europe, such as France, United Kingdom, Russia, Sweden, Finland, Czech Republic, Slovak Republic, Bulgaria, and some others, plan for nuclear will likely go ahead with little interruption. This is my feeling and what I saw from various sources. But cost and government control will probably increase significantly. For a few other countries in Europe, like Switzerland, Belgium, Italy, the issue is not clear yet. And maybe you can explain us what's happening in Switzerland, Charles. And of course, the third.
They have decided it.
It's not so clear. I mean, we took the example of Sweden. There was a referendum 30 years ago to give up with nuclear, and they still have 10 nuclear power plants. They were obliged to reverse their decision 30 years after the referendum, saying no nuclear, phase out during 2010. So, take care of the history, and of the future is difficult to. And of course, for Germany, the phase out is almost unavoidable. And that's it. I just want to stop here because I have many other things to say. But I would like to leave the floor to you and ask questions. Maybe Charles first, second, third. Good.
Very briefly, Switzerland is kind of the same as Germany.
Yeah, okay.
Switzerland is sort of in the same position as Germany.
Yeah.
In other words, there's a really distasteful example of how political party maneuvering overrides strategic thinking for most politicians. You did a very good job of explaining that. Yeah? And I find it personally very distasteful, the cross examples that you use. The question I'd like to use is, why not at least be honest? You talked only about renewables. If you talk to any responsible person in Germany and in Switzerland, even the politicians, they will tell you that renewables won't do it. You will have to build more coal-fired power stations, more gas-fired power stations. Make the decision if you want, but be honest about the consequences. And none of the politicians are being honest, and you were also not honest in your description of it. You managed to do the whole thing without mentioning the fact that the only way you can actually hope to get this through is to reintroduce fossil fuels. And it's the same in Switzerland, but at least our politicians are honestly admitting they will have to build 5 gas-fired power stations.
Yeah. And buy electricity from nuclear from France, yes, I know. Well, maybe, yes, please. Oh,
Thank you. I'm Won Pil-baek from Korea Atomic Energy Research Institute. One comments and one questions. I think that the decision of Germany and Italy is just going back to the situation 1 or 2 years ago. Actually, they didn't. Italy stopped the nuclear program a long time ago, and the German has the phase-out policy already. But due to the nuclear renaissance, they started to consider the resuming of the nuclear construction, but they gave up due to Fukushima accident. But the impact on the public perception is so significant. But anyway, it's not nothing very new. They just came back, went back to the situation 2 years before. I have a question about the situation of France. I was in France last week, and the recent poll you mentioned that the public opinion on nuclear energy has been changed a lot, even in France. And you may have some difficulty in constructing new plants, even in France, due to the so prolonged progression of Fukushima accident. But in France, you already have nuclear power shares almost 80% of electricity, and you have only a very small plan for new construction of nuclear power plants. Therefore, it will not affect anything for the time being. But after around 10 years, many of your existing plants will arrive at the original lifetime. And then you should decide whether you replace those existing nuclear power plants by nuclear power or by other sources. What do you think? What do you expect on this aspect?
But I think you can answer to this.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point. And it raises two questions in one. The first one is how strong and how long can be the impact of the public opinion. I don't have the polls that were made after the Chernobyl accident in 1986, but I'm pretty sure that the results were very similar to what happened here. There was this enormous fear among the public opinion. But yet, it didn't stop the nuclear programs in France, and it didn't have a strong impact on our nuclear policy in a longer term. So are we going to have a similar scenario this time? So that's the first possible answer. And the second one is, yes, it will probably, not only because of the Fukushima accident, but mostly because of what the Germans are doing, it will probably have some impact on the future energy policies of France. And the reason why I mentioned the different postures of the political decision makers and the candidates for the next presidential election is not to see what decisions they will make, because we all know that it will change once they are elected. This is the way it works. But how can we consider that they will be capable of proposing new reactors and new capacities in the future? So it is certainly a major concern, not only in France. I just mentioned the case of Japan, which is probably even more sensitive on this issue. How is Japan going to propose new reactors and to renew its nuclear plants in the future? I think it will be nearly impossible in the current situation. So in a country like France, which indeed has no alternative at the moment, the reason why there's a gap between the public opinion and the decisions that the political makers make is mostly because we don't have any other choice. We don't have enough renewable energies at the moment, and we don't want to copy what the Italians have made 25 years ago. I remind you that when the Italians adopted this decision in 1987 after the referendum, they believed in green energies, and they believed that it would be able to replace the nuclear capabilities. And instead of that, it totally increased the oil dependence of Italy. So are we going to follow this path in France? So these are our questions, and these are, of course, questions that will be asked both to the public opinion but also to the policymakers at the time we will consider the necessity to renew our nuclear reactors.
I will let Hans to give a short answer, comment on this. Please, a short one. Yes.
Yes. Well, to be honest, you are right. It is clear that in the next 10 years we need new reactors, gas reactors and coal reactors with reduced carbon dioxide. No question about it in the meantime. But over the next 10, 15 years, it's also quite clear that alone with when we heavily invest in energy efficiency, we can close 10 reactors. Alone when we invest heavily in energy savings, we can close 10 nuclear reactors. So it's more, we have now only 17. That's my answer to you. But in principle, you're right. In the meantime, we have some problems. Okay.
Just very 10 seconds comment on the pools in France. I heard recently in other pools, the results are very contradictory. There was a recent pool, we asked the people, are you ready to pay much more your electricity in exchange of phasing out nuclear? And 65 or 70% said no. Okay, you and please, madam, after that. Yeah. Sorry for that.
Henry Sokolsky with the Non-Proliferation Policy.
Yeah.
Apparently not. Please.
I'll just raise my voice. Oh, it's on now.
Okay, please.
Henry Sokolsky with the Non-Proliferation Policy Education Center. 3 questions that are very short. I didn't hear anything about 3 things that I think we are all curious about. One is, to what extent is this event and the politics, at least in some of these Western states in Europe, going to increase gas dependency and the dealings with Russia? 2, how do folks intend to deal with that? I mean, is that something they welcome or not? 2, the Russians have all sorts of ideas about safety, and I'm not sure how much traction you have, but I'm curious to get your view as to how you are going to deal with that safety issue on your borders and in Eastern Europe. And then finally, perhaps the one I'm most interested in, what impact, if any, does this political tsunami in some of these countries in Europe have on the question of export of nuclear power to places like the Middle East, which the French were wildly enthusiastic about, probably still are. How does this work?
Can you answer to
Yes. Yes. Well, a few days ago, I stayed in Frankfurt at the Russian Consul General guest house, and he told in a speech, well, he hoped that the German decision to go out of the civil nuclear program will enhance the gas business with Russia. So you see, the French hope for more nuclear energy, to export more nuclear energy. The Russians hope that they can export more gas to Germany. Well, my short answer would be this is possible. It's not a big problem for Germany, I must say. We don't fear the dependency to Russia because we have very good business relations with Russia. And Russia is up to now a credible partner in that business. And you must also know Schröder is a member in Gazprom, the previous chancellor. So from my point of view, I do not expect that Russia will use it as a weapon, but in the meantime, dependence in the next year will increase. I would agree on that. But it's not a major problem because over the longer time, the dependency will decrease, and the Russians know that.
Is that because there's other gas you're going to tap in the
No, the renewable energy will come. Well, I can tell you, move to the south of Germany, you will see a lot of solar panels on the roofs. I personally have on my house solar panels. They can produce the whole energy my house needs for the year. And I can export it to the company. It's more than I need. And I'm living nearby Frankfurt. And the efficiency of the new panels will be much better than that of the old panels. I have now efficiency of 13%. The new ones will have 20 to 25, and they are researching now on 30% efficiency. So you see what is happening. And the only problem is storage. And the storage problem will be solved in the next 5 to 10 years. Or we will see new solutions for that. And if that works, we have a lot of problems solved. Not all. Wind energy is coming in the next years. We have only the problem that the connection between south and north is not very good. We must do something about that. And we need intelligent systems for steering the whole electricity system, because wind at some times will not work. So sun will not always shining. So we need a good steering system. And the computers give us the possibility to do that in the next few years. So from my point of view, with renewable energy, and also with some gas and coal, no question about it, but much less than now, we can solve our energy problems. Russia's idea about security or safety. Well, it's a major concern to me, no question about it. Well, we must speak with the Russians about that issue and look what the EU can do to improve safety of Russian reactors. And of course we can do something about that. So it's a problem. Export of nuclear power, I must say the German companies moving out of export of nuclear power. Siemens, for example, is it's a big company who heavily in the past did a lot of business in exporting nuclear reactors and generators and so on. They will do it surely in the future, but on a reduced level. And for them, ecology and environment protection is now the better business. And they invest heavily in that direction and try to earn as much money as they can. And this is the future business for Siemens. No problem about that. Thank you.
Okay, I promise to this woman.
Thank you.
Maybe one.
Just two words on the first question regarding the gas dependency. In the case of France, I think it's a major argument for the political leaders and also companies such as Areva. Anne Lauvergeon said recently in an interview something very interesting. In France, electricity is 40% cheaper than in the rest of Europe, thanks to our nuclear capabilities. And this is a very strong argument. And it has a major impact on the public opinion. What you mentioned, the poll you mentioned earlier, is pretty relevant. There's this dilemma in France. There's this fear about nuclear regarding what happened in Japan and what happened 25 years ago in Chernobyl. But at the same time, people do not want to increase the energy bill. And gas, on the other side, is extremely unpopular at the moment in France, mostly because of the increase of the gas prices over the past few years. So this is a very strong argument, and this is an argument that may remain extremely strong in the near future, and that will probably ensure the nuclear capabilities in France in the next at least 20 years.
Another question here, please.
Right. Nobody's mentioned the very large natural gas reserves in Europe, the unconventional gas recovery process, which apparently would allow Europe considerable autonomy, even from Russia. And I think I'd like to ask the panel, why is it that certainly in France there is a sort of hysterical reaction against both the nuclear and against natural gas? So they don't want anything except for solar panels. And I'm so glad to hear that solar panels are getting more efficient and that they will save us. But at what cost? It's very encouraging for one of the richest countries in the world to say we can get rid of 10 nuclear power stations. But nobody thinks of the cost. A lot of people can't afford that.
Are you speaking about shale gas, or I mean?
Yeah, shale gas.
Shale gas. Yes.
Shale gas. Yes.
There was. I asked to myself the same question as yours. French people are again. Well, the government decided just to stop any research on shale gas. We have a lot of shale gas underground in France. It was because of I don't know what. Because of political pressure, or I don't know. But for the shale gas. And now I forgot your second point. Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah.
It was just public opinion. Why should public opinion be so hysterically against both nuclear and?
Oh well, as I said, it's more relative. I mean, don't think that majority of people have suddenly are suddenly against nuclear. There are many polls showing that it's about 50-50 now in France. It was 60-40 before Fukushima, or 65-35. Now it's about 50-50. And from the political point of view, he explained quite clearly about the situation. So the issue, I think we will keep nuclear in France. I'm quite convinced of this. Whatever Germany is doing.
Let us wait and see.
No. That's clear. That's clear.
I think the population has something to say, even in France.
They have. And we will see in the next. Maybe you didn't underline. We have presidential election next year.
I know. Yeah.
You know, the political situation is rather simple. It's just you have right and left, as in many democracies. The right are, roughly speaking, the right party are for nuclear. And the left, socialist, the party,
divided.
Officially,
Divided.
They are divided.
It's also in our country
it's not
divided.
one man, rough, I speak roughly. The Socialist Party are divided. They were for, before they were supporting nuclear. Don't forget that the main part of the nuclear program in France was built it under a left government. We built it at that time, one nuclear power plant every 3 months, between 1980 and 1990. And before this election, François Mitterrand said, well, with nuclear, they make some. And when he was in power, there was 50 nuclear power plants built in France, 40. So, we have to, France has not suddenly got against nuclear people.
I would like to add something. I totally agree with that. And you have to keep in mind that what is important for the French public opinion now is more safety issues regarding the nuclear reactors. It's not the idea of nuclear energy. It's how can we propose a better transparency of how it works and how it is secured. So if the next governments manage to adopt a clear strategy of how to, secure our capabilities first and prove the public opinion that it works quite efficiently, then the polls will totally switch back, I believe. So we cannot say that nuclear is absolutely not popular in France.
Yeah. Yes, please. After that, maybe you. Okay. We have a few minutes for two questions. Yeah.
Thank you. My question is more to Bartholomew. I was wondering what the European Union's reaction has been to Fukushima. Has the EU adopted a common policy, or are they thinking about it?
They tried.
Well,
they are very divided.
Yeah.
As was well, German reaction was absolutely different than the French reaction. That there was a big debate at the European Union. There was a question, I have the element here, no time to go into detail. Even there was, 1 month ago, after Fukushima, a discussion at the parliament. And the country was so divided on this issue that there was no vote on this. It was impossible to reach an agreement. It was only possible to reach an agreement on this, what they call stress test. And it was a difficult one, by the way, because Germans wanted to include terrorist attacks and so on. It was a very complex issue. But anyway, we reached an agreement. Europe, reached an agreement on the technical point of view for the safety test on nuclear power. There will be a program is engaged on stress test, flooding, earthquakes, and many things. I have the details here. You can see this on the internet. Anyway, it's a very precise program with report, with many things are engaged at the European level concerning all the almost 150 nuclear power plants in Europe. And there are 18, for Europe at large, there are 18 countries having nuclear power plants. And in the EU 25 countries, there are 13 countries. So, okay, having. So this is, I don't know if it is an answer to your question, but from political point of view, impossible to reach an agreement. They're so different between Austria. Austria is deeply against nuclear, 85% of the population. Austria, which held, by the way, the headquarters of International Atomic Energy Agency, by the way. But anyway, it's deeply against, and you have some countries like Czech Republic, which are, all people are for nuclear. It's just a neighbor of Austria. You can imagine the problem. So it's difficult to, there's no agreement about nuclear option, roughly speaking, between European countries. Okay. Excuse me, to have, please.
My name is Chi-Yoon Kim, and I'm a research fellow at Asan Institute. And first of all, I'd like to thank you all for coming here for the event and sharing your thoughts and for the lively discussion. I'm not a nuclear expert, but I'm in charge of all the public opinion polls released by the Asan Institute. And my job is just staying here and then just being silent. But I couldn't really resist to say something because as an institute in April, we also did some the public opinion poll after Fukushima and asking the Korean people, how do you think about a Korean power plant, nuclear power plant, and what do you think we have to do after this? And it's not my question, I have only the comment. So we have that the Korean people think that there's some possibilities the same kind of nuclear accident will happen in Korea. So 66% of people believe that. And it's apparently there's some problem of the trust in the government because they do not really trust the government's announcement that, well, it's not going to happen in South Korea. Our nuclear power plants are really safe. And the last in the majority believe the announcement. And, the political consequence in terms of it, it is true that the approval rating of the president, and that we also ask the questions. We do have the presidential election next year too, and when we ask them, are you going to vote for the current incumbent party's candidate or an opposition party's candidate? It was within the error margin in January, and then now the gap is widening, and the last month in May, the gap was like 15%. So 15% gap. More than the people said that they are going to vote for the opposition party's candidates. So currently, the incumbent party is losing their popularity, and the president is also popularity rating is going down. But what we believe is it's not because of Fukushima, it's not because of nuclear accident, and we saw. It is more related with the economy, and it is more related with the trust in the government. So I don't know. I mean, it seems like there's a Green Party is more active in Germany apparently, and it is also becoming, more popular in France too. But I don't really think that the Fukushima accident has a really key player in the next presidential election in France. and in Korea either. But it is a short report of what the Koreans thinking right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have 1 minute or two for a very quick last question, please. Go ahead. You have the mic.
Okay, it's a very brief question.
Yeah.
Following up on the EU point, the nuclear energy, common energy policy in the EU has always been a headache, and I'm not talking about just nuclear energy, but overall external energy policies and inter-EU coordination. Yeah. I was wondering if the German decision, so this is more a question for Mr. Schmidt, might create more political will, or if Germany is going to try harder to get at least an inter-EU coordination so as to ensure more energy security for Germany in this new policy. So what do you think can this galvanize the EU energy policy, which has been dead so far?
Good point, yes. Please.
Well, I can give you a very short answer. Because we are surrounded by a lot of countries with civil nuclear energy programs, we have a big interest that we have common guidelines for nuclear safety in the future. So we will heavily invest in that and engage in that. And so for me, and from my point of view, Germany in principle has no problem to establish some common policy on that in the future. Yes, and one short remark to you, because you mentioned the prices. I must agree that the investment in renewable energy, or I should better say in energy savings, can increase the problem for the poor people, because the rents for the houses are going up when they are modernized to save energy. And now our house owners have the allowance to modernize it and to bring in the costs into the rent. And we have now an increase in rents in certain areas up by 40%. This is a lot and cannot be financed by common people. So I must also say we have some social problems with that program and must cope with it. Thank you for that good question.
Thank you for the answer, which was very clear. Thank you very much to all of you. I've been asked to end this. Thank you very much again, and for the panelists. Thank you.